Let's talk crochet. Hey folks, it's Mary, aka MercyTriumphs, and this is my channel Slow Crochet. This is episode 033, and I am talking to you this week about works in progress because I don't have any finished objects. I am sure y'all all have had those kinds of weeks where it's like this perfect storm of not only not having a lot of time to crochet, but also what you are working on just for whatever reason isn't working out. So that's where I find myself this week. I have nothing finished and I only have a few things in progress, and both of those things have been frogged back multiple times. One thing that I was working on was a beret made out of Mojito Merino, which is a yarn by Plymouth Yarn. And it's something that I picked up on a little yarny road trip to Peoria, Illinois. I was making a beret, and the color is cobalt, and it's really quite pretty. The yarn is a beautiful color. It's a really fun kind of nubby texture, but it's also got quite a bit of stretch to it. So as I worked it up, the fabric that it creates is quite thin. So you would say, why is this not a finish? Well, it's because I just don't really like it. I just don't really like it. I don't like how this sits on my head. I'm not following a pattern. It just, it's kind of shapeless and void and formless, and it doesn't do what a beret ought to do in my opinion, and it doesn't do what a beanie ought to do. And I don't know if it's the texture of the yarn or quite what it is, but I'm a little bit stumped. So I don't know if this is a yarn that works better knitted up or if I'm just being a little over ambitious, but I'm not sure that it's going to stay a beret. Maybe this would work nicely into a cowl. Like what if I did like a white or a cream and this blue? That would make a really beautiful cowl. I love the yarn. I love the colors, and the texture is really nice and soft. However many times I've worked on this, I've frogged it back and pulled it back and just back and forth. You know those times where you're determined to make something work, but at some point you just have to say, okay, this is not the time. I'm gonna set it aside. I'm gonna frog it. I'm gonna step away. Maybe it'll turn into something wonderful in the future. I want to know from you guys, what would you do? Because I'm a little bit at a loss here. I think on the label it said it was a 4, but as it stretches out, I have been using a size I hook, which is normally what I use on a DK weight. So let me know what you think on this beret. What would you do with one skein of this? And I can put the yardage right here. So work in progress, not a finish, number 1. The other work in progress that I was working on last week that I made some progress on, but then I ended up frogging it way back, was my Neptune's Tears shawl. And I realized as I was going along that somewhere I had miscounted, and my triangle, instead of being a nice right triangle, it was very skewed, very wonky. So I frogged back the entire thing. I was probably 20 rows in, which is a little bit disheartening. I was using Sirdar Jewel Spun, which is Aran weight. It is by West Yorkshire Spinners. It is beautiful. The color is golden green. It's 100% acrylic. So 200 grams, 546 yards. Very lovely. This is the other yarn that I picked up at the Fiber Universe in Peoria, Illinois. So I did start a new project with it. Here's my little yarn bowl here. This one doesn't have a pattern either. I have been really nervous about creating my own patterns for things, or at least mentioning that I've done that. In a lot of ways, I am happy to reinvent the wheel and make things harder on myself, but I've learned if someone else has already done it for me, I'd rather just modify or tweak what they've already done rather than me reinventing the entire wheel. But in this case, I realized I probably could just go for it, just create my own shawl pattern, and that is what I am doing. So this is definitely not the same that it was. I am trying to keep it interesting, but I'm also trying to not have too much lace work in this pattern, but I also don't want to get bored. One of my challenges with shawls is when they are so repetitive that I get bored, and I don't want to do that in this case. So I am doing some grid stitches I'm doing some just crossed double crochets. I'm doing a little bit chains and kind of that network. And then I'm also doing some linked trebles up here. So far, I'm only doing 2 rows of double crochets at a time before breaking it up with another stitch pattern, but I do want it to be a little bit thicker, a little bit warmer. And I'm using a size K hook, which is a 6.5 millimeter, and it's coming out pretty nice. So I think that that kind of larger size hook is going to work well with this Aran weight yarn, and it'll be sweet and drapey and cozy. I like how this is going. I like how there's some variation in the stitches, and I think it's really beautiful how the colors are playing out. I'm going to see how this turns out, and once it's finished, I'll make sure to show everyone, but if there is interest, this might be a way that I could dip my toes maybe into writing patterns or doing short tutorials. The thing that I love about shawls is once you get going, if you just show the first couple of stitches and then like the center and the edges, the rest of it kind of takes care of itself. So it might be a nice way to step into a tutorial. I'm not sure. We'll see. The only other things I've been working on this week continue to be works in progress, and they have to do with the hashtag Not So Scary Halloween, and that little collaboration will be ongoing throughout October, but just know in the background I'm working on those things too in the little bits and pieces of time that I have. So that's all I have this week, guys. Not very much at all, but I'm really happy to spend some time with you, and I'm really thankful that you still choose to spend your time with me. I know that YouTube is just this kind of one-way thing, it seems, but I think it is beautiful that we get to be part of each other's lives and interact with them in the comments. So thank you for all the ways that y'all have encouraged me, and I've had so much fun getting to know y'all too. You are just some of the most generous of heart that I've ever encountered, and I think you're amazing. If I'm not your cup of tea, thank you so much for listening this long. I do appreciate it, and I hope I'll see you again soon. Bye.